Okay, in a previous lesson, we talked about sound and how humans are able to detect mechanical vibrations through our ears. All right, now what we want to know is how do humans detect electromagnetic radiation, and in particular, visible light. And so that is going to be the human eye. So I would like for you to know the different parts of the human eyeball and how do they work. All right, so we're going to start out with the cornea. So if I take this thing and I open it up here, okay, so there is the innards of the eyeball. The first thing that we're going to come to is this thing here. So the outer covering for the human eyeball is going to be called the cornea. And the cornea is going to have two functions. So it is going to be for protection. So it keeps ultraviolet light from penetrating and getting into the eyeball where it could cause a lot of damage. So it's for protection. It also helps to focus light as well. So it does two different things. So that's the cornea. One of the things that ultraviolet light can do, though, is it can damage the cornea. It can make it cloudy. And so the older you get, the more cloudy your corneas get, to the point at which you might need to have it surgically removed. Now the good thing about that is they can replace it with a cornea that is shaped such that you would not need to wear glasses again. Okay, so that's one of the good things about it. But take care of your eyes because later on in life they can be damaged by ultraviolet light. All right, then the next thing that I want to mention is going to be the iris. So the iris is going to be a thing that can expand and it can contract. So you might recall that when we talk about cameras, a camera has an iris that can open and it can close. So what's the point of the iris? It lets in differing amounts of light into your eye, so that during the daytime your iris will get small, so that it doesn't blind you. At nighttime, when you need extra light, it's going to expand. Your iris is going to be controlled by muscles that surround it. And so when you go to the eye doctor, one of the things that they do is they put in eye drops. And what those eye drops do is they paralyze those muscles that control the iris so that your iris will open up all the way. And so then that way the doctor can look into your eye easier. But the bad news is after the doctor has looked at your eye and it's time for you to leave, well, you cannot close the iris when you go outside until that drug wears off. So then you have to wear really, really dark sunglasses because it's just too bright outside. Okay, now the hole in the iris, okay, so the actual hole that the light goes through, that's going to be called the pupil. So it's not really part of the eye. It's a hole. So it's not really a structure. The iris that surrounds it, yeah, that's important. So that's the thing that opens and closes. That's also the colored part of your eye. All right, on the other side of the iris is going to be the lens. And so here is the lens part of the eye. And so the lens is for focusing. And the goal is, so here is your eyeball, and then here is the lens. And hopefully what we want is that light, when it passes through the lens, should come to a focus back here on what's called the retina. Okay, but the problem is that there are muscles that surround the lens the same way that there are muscles that surround the iris, And then those muscles, they can act on the lens to make it thinner, or it can make it fatter. And so by making it thin and fat, it's going to focus the light where it's supposed to, back here. But some people may not have very strong muscles. Some people, their lens may be misshapen, and so the lens then might focus the light to right here, which would be bad. So it's going to make the image blurry. So therefore, what they need to have is an extra lens that goes out in front to help guide the light so that it ends up back here. Now later, we'll talk about what those lenses are, and we'll talk about short-sightedness and far-sightedness and all of that. But for right now, just know that the lens changes its shape in order to get the light to end up back here. All right, now this part here, this is the actual eyeball, and there's kind of like a very clear jelly that is inside of this part of the eye, and it transmits the light through it. Sometimes little pieces of eyeball skin get into this jelly-like stuff, and they float past your vision. And so it's nothing really to worry about, but sometimes little pieces of stuff are floating around in there. All right, now the next thing is the retina, and the retina is the screen. So it is the screen back here on which the light should be focused. And in the screen, you're going to have rods and cones. So there are 3 kinds of cones, and they are going to correspond to the 3 kinds of visible light, so that you're going to have red cones, blue cones, and then green cones. They give you color vision. So the cones give you color vision, and they tend to be concentrated in this part of the eye back here. And then you have also rods. Okay, so the rods are going to give you black and white vision. And so they tend to be more concentrated in up here and over here. So this is the reason why at nighttime, if you look straight at something and it's night, you can't see it very well. But if you do this and you turn your head a little bit, you get a better view of it. And that's because what you're doing is you're using your black and white vision, which is off center from your color vision. All right, now what does the rods and the cones do? Well, they absorb the light, and then there's certain atoms inside the rods and the cones that when they get hit by a certain frequency of light, the electrons will jump. And we know when the electrons jump up, they absorb light, and then when they come down, they emit energy, but the kind of energy they're going to emit is going to be electricity. So these rods and cones absorb visible light, they give off electricity, the electricity goes down the optic nerve to the brain for processing. So those are the various parts of the human eye. And there's a whole bunch more, but those are the ones that are going to be the most important. All right, time to take our quiz. So we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll take a quiz over what you've learned today.